Hi, and welcome to the AnyRPG Engine 0.8 Alpha release livestream. In this livestream, I will be demonstrating all of the new sample content included in AnyRPG Engine 0.8 Alpha by doing a complete playthrough of the sample content, as well as showing some examples of the scriptable objects and monobehaviors that are new or changed in the Unity editor. If you don't already have a copy of AnyRPG Engine 0.8 Alpha, you can download it from anyrpg.org/downloads in Unity package format. Once you have downloaded the Unity package, you will want to open up your Unity hub and create a new Unity 2019.4.8 project, which can be downloaded from unity3d.com/getunity/download/archive. So we will create a new project of that version, and it's just going to be a standard 3D project at this point. I haven't added HDRP or URP support yet, and we'll just call this the YouTube AnyRPG demo project here, and we'll just click create. Once this project is created, what you'll want to do is find the AnyRPG Engine 0.8A final Unity package that you downloaded from the downloads page, and just go ahead and drag it into your project. When you drag it in, you'll get a window here warning you that it's a complete project and it's going to overwrite your current settings. And if you're not sure what to do, you should switch to an empty project. So definitely make sure that you do this in an empty project, because AnyRPG requires specific layers in order to work, so it will overwrite any layers that you already have set up. At that point, you can just go ahead and click import, and you'll want to make sure that you import everything. So it comes with some navmesh components in order to make sure that mobs can move over movable bridges in this version, and all the text has been switched to TextMesh Pro, so you'll need to make sure that that's installed as well. And it uses UMA as its base character system, so that comes with it. And then you'll see at the bottom here, if we scroll all the way down, that we've got some project settings. So this Dynamics Manager is for the input. It's mapped to an Xbox controller for Invector support, which I will be covering in another episode, because that's just a subject all on its own. It also comes with the project settings and tag manager, which includes the physics settings as well as the layers and tags. Now, if you really don't want to import these, you can set this kind of stuff up manually, and to do that, you'll just go to anyrpg.org and go to documentation and look at the project settings page, and there's a full description there of what the layers need to be and what tags should be included, as well as the physics collision matrix to make sure that all of the engine's features are working properly. So once you have everything imported, then what you will do is you'll be looking at a project that looks pretty much like this. It should have the AnyRPG navmesh components, TextMesh Pro, and UMA folder, and then this scenes folder will have just been here by default because Unity will have placed that there. So in order to complete the playthrough, what we're going to do is we're going to open up the AnyRPG and look under the content directory. We'll be looking under a Lost Soul example under scenes, and we'll be loading the example load game manager. And what this does is it loads the game manager, which includes the UMA DCS system, and the configuration manager, which has all of the configuration options for the engine in it. Now, one of the first things that you can see that's new in this version is we're actually using tooltips and headings for a lot of things, and it's probably just a lot easier to find the settings in here that you're looking for with these new headings, because there's a lot of settings that you can configure in the engine. And just doing a double check, it looks like our layers are set up properly, and we have the correct tags here as well. And if we go to our project settings and look at our input manager, we've got an Xbox controller style input configured. And if we look at the physics, then we've got that collision matrix looking like it did on the website. So let's go ahead and begin the playthrough. We'll just press play. And the first thing that you might notice here is, let me just see how the volume is, to see if you can actually hear this or not. Okay, perfect. So the first thing that you might notice is that the engine now has sound effects in it. So we've got UI clicks and a whole pile of other sound effects. In fact, probably I think more than 50 or so, and those are found in the engine folder under audio, under sound effects. And we've got a bunch of different common sort of spell sound effects and some other just various stuff, footsteps and clicks and coins and such. And in this version as well, there are some new sound options, and I'm actually finding this UI click a little bit loud, so I'm just going to pull the UI volume down. And there, that's a lot better. It's not quite so overwhelming. We have separate voice volume because there is the option to have voice audio in the game and separate effects volume for sound effects if we're finding those too loud and they're overriding the voice, in addition to all the existing settings that were already there. Let's return, and one of the other new features is this credits right here. So we have in-game credits, and for example, the voiceovers were done by hand avatar, and we can see he's voiced Apprentice Historian Flair as well as some cutscene narration. And if we click on those, it'll actually open a URL in our web browser, and it'll take us to the YouTube channel. So you can configure that to basically be any URL that you want. And these are configured in the engine through a scriptable object. So we can look here for the credits category. So we have armor credits, and you can see that we can put in a name, some attribution, and a URL. And we have character credits as well. And then we have our voice acting credits here. So let's go to the play menu, and we're going to start a new game. So we'll say yes. And right here we see in a place outside of space and time, like usual. And suddenly it changes, a lost soul awakens with no memory of the past. So this is a new feature in 0.8 alpha. The subtitles can actually change when you're watching a cutscene. So let's take a look at that. This was the Soul Forge cutscene dialogue. And the SoulForge cutscene dialogue has two dialogue nodes. Cutscenes can now actually just use standard dialogues. A lot of things can actually use dialogues in this version. And we can see that this one starts immediately, and this one starts at 5 seconds, basically. You can also advance these dialogues with the Unity timeline as well, as they do support an advanced dialogue public method also if you don't want to control the timing manually yourself. Starting the game, we can see that there's been some slight improvements to the example prefabs. The souls are actually kind of see-through. The fountain actually kind of looks like a fountain as well. And one thing that you might notice is that my lost soul doesn't have any health or mana like he used to in the last version. This is because of the new custom stat system, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but basically stats are now completely configurable, and that includes health and mana, and so this lost soul literally has no health, no mana, and he would be impossible to kill as he doesn't have any health to actually remove. We can talk to the Guardian of Souls here, and we'll start our quest. You can hear the UI clicks happening there maybe. and we're going to accept that, and we're going to click on change my name. And another thing that is new in this version is actually these projector highlights right here. So when I click on a unit, it'll be selected underneath it, and there's a bunch of different projector highlights that are actually included with the engine. So if we look for projector stuff here, we've got a blue projector. See if I can find these. There we go. So we have a blue projector, a gray projector, green, orange, red, a separate projector for a boss. Bosses get special projectors to let us know, that they're more powerful, and a yellow projector. And these are included with the engine, and you can basically just use them for the different faction relationships. So if you select somebody that's friendly, they'll have a green one. If they're an enemy, they'll get a red one underneath them. Carrying on, we can change our name here, and I'm just going to call this guy our AnyRPG Engine 0.8a, and we'll confirm that and complete this quest here, and get our quest to go talk to the talking fountain. And we will move up, and the fountain here definitely is looking more like a fountain. It used to just be a box, so I'm trying to improve the prefabs with this in this new version, and we can accept the quest and go back and turn this in. And we'll get a quest here to go head over to the Bodymatic as well. And we'll go head over to the Bodymatic. The character panel has been improved to show a larger view of the character. It used to be about half this size, as well as it now shows all of the secondary stats in the game and the character specialization, which is a feature that is in the engine, but I won't be demonstrating that in this particular video. We'll get to our character creator, and this is pretty much the same as before. It's got basically all of the exact same options, change their skin color, etc. So we'll just save this guy and pop out of the character creator. Now, what we're hearing now is footsteps, and footsteps are a new feature in the engine, and you can see that they are applied to this particular unit. And that's why my soul didn't actually have footsteps. There's two ways to control the footsteps. You can either have them controlled through animation events, in which case, like my character is right now, every time his foot hits the ground, there's an animation event fired, and that footstep event is firing. You can also have them just on loops for whenever your character is moving, in case you have an animator that just doesn't support animation events or you don't want to configure it. Also, the health is available because of our character's unit profile and race, and so you can see that now that he's no longer a soul, he actually has some health. So we'll turn this in and continue on with the quest here, and we get a quest to cast our Blessing of the Makers. And if you heard the sound effect there when the spell was casting, that's another one that's now included in the engine. So we'll turn that in and complete that and carry on. And we're going to watch a cutscene over here. I'll just save the game before we load that cutscene. And we will click the icon here, and then we'll watch the cutscene. So if you're wondering why this is cute fluffy bunnies, but they're actually UMA units, it's because the engine includes UMA, and I don't have any redistributable bunnies, and these are just really quickly to throw together without a whole lot of effort. So we'll let this cutscene complete here and get our quest to go on to Birch Grove, where we can look at a bunch of the new content. The prefabs for the sample crystals have been improved. They're not just boxes anymore. They, kind of look like crystals a little bit. And as well, there's now sound effects included with the teleportation. right in the engine. And all these sound effects can be redistributed by you and, you know, included in your game and whatnot. The sample prefabs for the sample Birch Grove level have been improved here. There are now zone colliders around the edge of the zone, and you know, the trees actually kind of look like trees, the chests look like chests, and the plants and mushrooms, mining nodes, etc. are all improved as well, and this is all included in the engine. Also, you can see we've got a new weapon rack over here. So I'm going to talk to this salesman over here, or I mean, yeah, salesman, and get the quest to go open up our bank and retrieve our first backpack. And now we can just move that up there. I'm also going to adjust the transparency on this because it's a little bit hard to see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the settings menu here, and I will go to the opacity. I'm looking for the quest tracker opacity, so I'm just going to turn that up, and you can see it getting a little bit darker in the background there. And now it's a little easier to read. You know what, let's even make that just like a little bit darker. So turn that up almost all the way there, and now I can definitely see it a lot easier. So next thing is we're going to go talk to this guy over here, and he's going to basically get us to join the faction here. So we will join the Sunsworn faction and swear our oath of loyalty here. And now there's a new improvement. It's kind of hard to see with these sample icons that I have here, but this will actually tell you what level you actually get these abilities at. So we're going to join the Sunsworn faction here, and he's going to give us a quest, tell us we can now control the sun, and we got to go get some armor. So we'll go over here, and this guy's going to berate us for being naked. We're the most terrible recruit he's ever seen, and we now get to choose our class. Now if you watch the unit frame up here, you'll see that basically as soon as I choose the channeler class, I now have access to mana as a resource, and this is also part of the new stat system. If I'd chosen, for example, the warrior class, I'd have rage as a resource. If I chose the fighter class, I'd have energy as a resource, and resources are entirely configurable by the user as well. I'm just going to rearrange my action bars here. All the keybinds work properly in this version. Before, the shift keys weren't working in the last version of the game. And so for me, like if you're used to playing games, you basically don't even look at your bars. You just sort of know where, what buttons you need to press in order to make things happen pretty much. So I'm just going to set these up so I know what buttons I'm using. And we'll get the next quest to go over and get some weapons and make some armor. So in this new version, we've got a little bit better of a weapon rack here, and the sample weapons have been improved slightly. You know, it's still Unity primitives, but at least they're colored a little bit here. So we'll go pick up our battle-worn staff here, and now we can open up our bag and we can equip that, and we can turn it in and continue on with our quest and our demonstration. And we're going to learn all of our gathering skills as well. And now we need to go take out some bunnies. You can see that the bunny right here he has energy because he is of the fighter class. So I'm just going to hit him with a blind and then basically just sort of nuke him with a solar singe. And you can hear the sound effects basically that are included with the engine. So this particular type of spellcast has a sound effect associated with it. Pick up these mushrooms here and loot our bunny and get some rabbit hide off of him. We can collect copper from this mine right here. And you can hear as well that there's now sound effects included in the engine for the mining, and that's actually using animation events. So when I am performing my mining ability, we actually have an animation hit audio profile. You can choose two different types of audio profiles. You can either just have one sound effect that is, pre-programmed to last for the entire time you're casting, or you can actually have animation events trigger those individual clicks if you've got, just one sort of click as your sound effect. We'll make sure that we're casting all of the abilities that we're supposed to here so that we can pass this quest. And if you hear that thudding sound, that's me hitting the angry reanimated bunny with a stick, and that's also included in the engine now. And similarly, when we hit this tree here, we've actually got animation hit events every time the axe hits the tree, and that sound effect is also included in the engine. So let's see what I have to do here. I have to cast mana pool and infuse light. So cast infused light. Hear a different sound effect for that one as well. And I think you might have been able to hear that like fist sound effect. So when the bunny's attacking me here, you can actually hear the sound effect for him attacking me. The spell effect prefabs are still pretty primitive in this version, and so if you're a graphic designer and you like to make spell effects or you like to make icons, those are definitely the two biggest needs in the engine. Someone was really generous to donate all these sound effects that are in use for the spells, though. So the engine is a lot closer to being sort of able to complete a game right out of the box without a whole lot of extra downloading. And we need to collect some flax here now so that we can complete this quest. And that's the final bunny that we needed to kill. And we'll just wait for this flax here to respawn. And there's our flax. Perfect, so we're done this quest. We're just going to hand this in and we're going to get a bunch of skill rewards. We're going to learn all of these different skills. And now we have to basically go refine all of these things. So we are going to refine a copper ingot over here, and we'll see a new feature of the 0.8 alpha engine right now. If you look at our list right here for blacksmithing, you can see we've got some initiates stuff on the list. Note the character's level 6, and at some point we're actually going to learn new recipes automatically as our character levels up. That'll happen later on as well. And when we start crafting the ingot here, I'm just going to click craft all, and you can see that we actually have an ingot appear in our hand, and this is configurable through ScriptableObjects as well. So each crafting recipe can actually have its own set of holdables associated with it. So now, for example, when we go craft our birch wood, you can see that we've got a log in our hand because we're crafting something with wood, and we've got a saw in our hand, and of course the saw is using a sound effect because the sound effects for pretty much all the crafting stuff are included in the engine. Similarly, we'll craft a bunch of linen here. We'll just click craft all. You can see we've got sound effects going, and these ones are basically just using the animation events. If we look at, for example, the tailoring ability here, you can actually see that we have the animation hit audio profile and the animation profile. So let's look for the animation profile for tailoring. And if we look at this example sewing, which is the animation that's being performed, and open up the events, you can see these animation hit events, and that's basically just telling the engine that it's time to play one of those little sewing sounds. And we've got a new sewing prefab, this sort of like a ancient simple pair of scissors as well, that's included with the engine. And think we'll have all our linen soon, and then we can go ahead and craft our leather. Perfect, so we will craft our one leather here. And we can go turn that part of the quest in. Next we need to craft an initiate staff, so we'll go ahead and do that. And in this case you can see that this recipe doesn't have any holdable. It kind of looks like he's just like sawing off his arm there. Yeah. Okay, next up we need to craft our robes, so we'll go back over the tailoring folder, and I can't remember exactly if this feature was in the last version of the engine or not, but there is a tailoring queue now, so I can just click craft on the hood, and I can click craft on the robe, and then I can click craft on the shoes, and then I can click craft on the gloves. And what will happen is my character will just go ahead and craft all that stuff for me, and so I don't have to click each of those things individually. Looking at the items in the bag, you can see another new feature of the engine, and that's level scaling. So if we look at the item that we're hovering over here, you can see that it says item level 7, 1 through 8. So what this means is that this item will automatically be the same level as you are. So it'll basically scale up with you, so you don't have to replace stuff every level, but it will basically stop scaling at level 8. That's the maximum item level for that particular item. And this makes it a lot easier to have basically just dynamic content in your game, so you don't have to manually control item levels on everything. You know, you can just have this stuff scale up as high as you want. Let's see, so we're going to put on all of the items right here. And you can see another new feature of the AnyRPG Engine 0.8 here, and that is recolors. So the Uma armor, I've created recolors of all of it. So our initiate's robes are now gray, and then we'll have different colored robes as we level up, and the same for the leather armor that's included in the engine. There's recolors of that as well, so the character isn't going to be just basically wearing the same gear the entire time. Also, if we go over to the vendor, we can now sell stuff, and there are sound effects included with the engine now, so when we sell this staff, we'll actually hear some coins clink as well, and we can basically let's go make a necklace, just because our character could actually use it. So I'm going to go to jewelry here, and I'm going to make a polished blue gem, and you'll see another example of the prefab that's included. So we've got this new sort of gem purple prefab, and also the clicking sounds when we're making any jewelry recipe are now included in the engine. So now that we've got a nice green necklace here, we can equip that, and that'll increase our stats as well. So let's just go clear our bags out. We don't need this copper ingot anymore. We don't need any more of that birch lumber or the rabbit hides or the spotted mushroom. And I'll demonstrate a little later, but basically the item price can scale as well based on the item level of the items. So when we go through a dungeon, you'll see how the gear is going to actually have a different sale price automatically just based on the quality of it, for example. So we'll go ahead and continue on with our quest here, and we'll zap our zombie. And you can hear the sound effects from the hits there as well. And I will complete this quest here and get my new weakness channel spell, and then kill another couple of zombies here. And then we'll be able to finish this quest up and carry on with the demonstration of the new content. Okay, great. So that quest is complete now, and we will accept our next one, and we'll get sent off basically on our mission to go take on the undead army all by ourselves, while everyone else just sort of hides out in the base here. What I want to do is I want to kill these skeleton slayers here, because they actually have like one of the most overpowered abilities in the game right now, and that is a life tether ability that is going to allow me to basically sort of cheese everything. You can see the example zombies as well now have blue skin, as we're trying to improve the quality of the prefabs that are included with the engine, definitely with every release. Even our angry bunnies now have red skin. They're not just like a standard human looking skin. So let's see, we want to head over this way and try to find as many skeleton slayers as we can. The loot drop system has been upgraded as well. So the if we look at the unit profile, let's actually just focus on that right here. Most things can be controlled through unit profiles now. So if we look at the skeleton slayer unit here, we can control the loot tables, the dialogues, what sort of quests he has, what vendor collections he can sell, any scriptable behaviors, and we'll see the scriptable behaviors later, as well as basically like what kind of footsteps he has. So you could give your zombies like a shuffle footstep. You can give each individual unit their own custom stats if you want, and their own custom resources, what kind of weapon skills as well here. So if we look at the skeleton slayer loot table, we can see that basically he's got a single loot group here, and this loot group has a drop chance of 20%. So what that means is there's a 20% chance that we'll actually be able to roll on anything in this list. If that 20% chance is passed, then we have a 100% chance to basically drop one of these items here as well. So if we look back at the skeleton slayer unit, you can see that he has that loot table skeleton slayer, but then there's another common loot table birch grove, which is controlling everything else. You can also see that we've got an automatic currency here, and what that means is that this mob is actually going to drop more money as we level up and as he gets to a higher level. So if we're looking at our game manager, you can see that basically for the currency scaling, anytime that I kill a mob, if they have that automatic currency checked, then I will get 50 copper per level of the mob. So basically a mob at level 8, which is what I am at right now, I would expect to get basically 400 copper or 4 silver. And this makes it a lot easier to have your content scale up automatically without having to do a lot of configuration. Basically, every mob in the game will just sort of drop the appropriate amount of money. So you're not going to have to configure each mob individually, basically, if you just use that option. Still gonna keep killing these skeleton slayers until I get my life tether ability, because it's just gonna make the rest of the content here super easy. But of course, that's the nature of random drop chance. And if you heard that metal clink there, that was basically the skeleton slayer has a sword, and so those sword sound effects are now included in the engine as well. Although it's basically the same metal clink that you hear if you're mining, for example. Over there you can see some archers firing arrows, and you can actually hear the arrows flying through the air, as arrow sound effects are now included with the engine. And wow, this this archer almost killed me there. That was pretty spectacular. Alright, and I finally got my life tether channel. Awesome. So this is going to make everything just like way easier, because now I can drain the life out of people, and this awesome electricity sound effect is also now included with the engine. So now we're going to go over and we're going to defeat the skeleton warrior, and as you can see here, the skeleton warrior is basically a boss level unit. He's got twice as much hit points as anyone else at this level, 1800 as opposed to 900. So he had that special sort of targeting on the ground underneath him. I'm going to equip this 20 slot bag that just dropped and equip the bone staff here, because it's a nice epic staff that scales all the way up to level 12. And you can see the sell price here. You can see another new feature of the engine, and this is random equipment qualities. So this inferior copper battle axe has a gray title on it, and it only sells for 5 silver. However, this superior tattered cape, which is a blue quality item, is going to sell for 50 silver here. And you can configure item quality as well as random stats and random secondary stats on items as well. I've of course got my buff on here because these guys are now all unfriendly. They've got orange instead of red. And another new feature of the 0.8 alpha is that you can actually suppress the factions. You can see I'm allowing the undead faction to show for this skeleton slayer, but I'm actually suppressing it for my character, because if we look at my character here, you know what, I actually don't include this on here. Put that in the next version. His faction now is Sunsworn, basically, so that's just being suppressed, because you don't really need to see your character's own faction. It just kind of takes up extra space above their heads. So I'm going to continue on my journey here and run back to the base, and of course, because these guys are now scared of me because I've got a bone staff with their leader's head on a spike, then they're just going to leave me alone. Put this mana potion on the action bars here, and actually what I'm going to do is this superior tattered cape, I think it's actually, I don't have a cape, so I'm going to equip that. That's actually a really useful random drop. Most of the time you just get vendor trash. If you look at the tattered cape recipe, for example, we have this tattered cape item, and what you can see on it is the price scaling. So basically it's going to be selling for silver, and for every item level it's going to give you 10 extra silver. And this includes stamina, and because we don't have a manual value on it, this is actually going to be determined based on the item level. If we look at the item level, there's dynamic level checked with a level cap of 8, so this item will automatically scale up based on your level. Now if we look at the Birch Grove loot, we can actually see how the weighting is going to be working. So looking at the loot groups, there's 3 loot groups in Birch Grove, and one of them includes the 8 slot bag, health potion, and tiny health potion. So we have a 20% chance to drop 1 item from this list. And then these drops are actually weighted, so you can see right here that the 8 slot bag has a drop weight of 10, and these ones have a drop weight of 20. So what that means is that we'll actually add all these up to get a total number of 50, and then we'll perform some random number calculation, which means that each of these have twice as high of a chance as the 8 slot bag. So the loot capabilities are dramatically improved here. You can see that we've got these copper battle axes and all these other weapons here, and they have an equal chance to drop. And these ones are actually random item quality as well. And to look at the item quality list, if we go to, for example, superior, let's look at epic item quality here. Okay, so looking at the item qualities, because we can have random item qualities on the item, we have to figure out a way of to determine what chance each of these item qualities has to drop. So you can see that we have a random weight here. So the common item quality has a random weight of 16, the epic only has a random weight of 2, legendary has a random weight of 1, and then the poor has a random weight of 32. So all of these weights are also added up, which means that basically for your poor item, which has a weight of 32, you have a 32 times as many chances of getting one of these poor items as you do the legendary with only the weight of 1. And the item colors in the backpack are controlled by this. Unfortunately, I don't have transparent icons in this demo, but if you did have transparent icons, you can have item colors automatically show just based on the item quality. And then you can control the scaling for the vendor as well based on the item quality, so you don't have to set any of this stuff individually on a per item basis. You basically just say this item is epic, let it scale, and the engine can now do all of the rest of that for you, which eliminates just a lot of the manual work in the game. So we'll continue on here and turn in our quest, and now we have to go investigate the mines. So we'll continue on, and we'll go find our portal over here in the mines. Let's just turn down those sound effects a little bit here. So we'll just cancel this cutscene. Basically, there's nothing particularly new in this cutscene. You can see basically that there's some new prefabs though. The tin ore is actually a gray thing, and we've got this purple crystals here as well. And what I'm going to do is I actually gained a necromancy spell from equipping this bone staff. You can see that I learn necromancy when I equip it. So what I'm going to do is basically attack this rock golem here, absolutely demolish him with my life drain ability. And you can hear those rock sound effects here basically. So we have some nice rock crumble sound effects actually included in the engine now as well. And what I want to do is I actually want to resurrect this guy with necromancy, and you can hear that new sound effect as well for the necromancy. And dropped recipes are a new feature of the engine. So this recipe item, when I click on it, right click on it, I'm going to learn it. You can see I learned the recipe miner's shield, and I also learned the recipe miner's helm. Also included in 0.8 alpha is these equipment sets. So you can see right there, it tells me that we've got miner's plate armor. I have 0 out of 8 pieces equipped. It shows me what the pieces are. And then when I have 5 pieces equipped, then I'm going to get that particular bonus. And this feature is actually really easy to configure. So the set is called the miner's plate. So if we look at the miner's plate, and what we're looking for is the equipment set right here, then this tells us which pieces are included in this set, and this tells us basically what status effects are going to be cast on the person who's wearing it when there's a certain amount of pieces. So because elements 1, 2, 3, and 4 are empty, that means that when you have 5 pieces, then you'll get this spell cast on you. If you wanted a 2-piece set bonus, you could just put the name of a status effect in the second spot here, and then you'd get status bonuses at 2 and 5 pieces also. So we're going to put on our miner's cloth bracers here, and now we've got our pet, and our pet is basically going to go demolish everything for us from now on. He's super powerful. He doesn't lose strength. And that rock golem didn't even drop anything. Wow. Okay, we'll continue looking to see if we got any good gear here. That we got another recipe. And what I'm actually looking for is maybe see if I can get my 5-piece set bonus. Because if I can get my 5B set bonus, I will actually get a reduction in the amount of incoming damage that I'm taking here. But today the random number gods are not with me. I did get a nice miner's necklace though, so that's not bad. We can equip that. And I got some miner's cloth gloves that time. That's not bad. But the other items are just basically random items, which are basically useless for me. So we'll just kill this boss here and continue on with the rest of the questing. And he dropped a nice 20 slot bag for us and a health potion, which will actually come in handy potentially in another fight later on. You can see this is another one of these random items here, and it's actually not bad. If I look at my shoulders, they're empty, so I'm going to equip this because it's this one gives random stats here. So if we look at the soiled cloth mantle in the editor here, and we look at the secondary stats, what happens is this one actually has all 7 secondary stats configured, but it's going to choose 2 of them randomly based on the item quality and give us 0.1 of each of those per level. So when we're looking at that, you can see that because the item level on the shoulders is level 11, then we have 1.1 extra critical strike and 1.1 extra damage. So that's a really nice random item. And then of course our glowing crystal here has been upgraded and it looks a little bit more like a crystal. So just run wide here because sometimes we get respawns on the way back, and then we'll head back and we'll turn in this quest here. And then I will want to basically clean out my bags when I get back. And we'll just click on the door here, which will return us to the surface. And for returning to the surface here, if we look, for example, at this level and we see the default spawn location, and we have a couple of other tags as well. For this one, I'm just using dungeon entrance 1, And if I click F on it, you can actually see in the scene, this is where dungeon entrance 1 is. So for these portals, you don't actually have to put in the vector3 coordinates for the return location anymore. You can just pop a game object in and just make sure it's got the right tag. You can also see that if I spawn in different spots around the map, like for example, the east entrance, we'll just hit F there. East entrance is right here, and anytime that I want to return from another level, I can just tell it that just put me wherever the east entrance tag is in the level. So these level spawn tags are just a quick and easy way to make content by just throwing tagged objects in, depending on whether you're returning from dungeon 1 or dungeon 2, or sort of which direction you're coming into the level from. So we'll go turn in this quest here, and then we'll get the quest to go over to the mouse base and aid the mice and do the final battle of the old content, and then we can basically start on the new content. And I'm just going to add that blessing because that increases my movement speed and makes my character run a little faster. The other thing that you can see now is I've got a brown shirt on and a gray hood on, and that's because the brown shirt is actually coming from my miner's cloth set here, and you can see that I managed to get 3 of the pieces, but not all of the pieces. So unfortunately, I still don't have that set bonus, but that's okay. I'll equip this other 20 slot bag here, and we'll go talk to our new mouse, or our old mouse here, Squeak-a-Lot. And you can see here that because Squeak-a-Lot is neutral with me right now, that he's got this yellow circle underneath him instead of the green ones or the red ones that we were seeing earlier here. The prefabs have been improved slightly. The cauldron looks a little bit more like a cauldron, and we've actually added a new character in the mouse base, Save-a-Lot, who is a banker. And once you get enough reputation, you can actually bank with him. Another really cool feature in this engine is the footstep areas. So what you'll hear is as soon as I run into this bunch of water here, that you'll actually hear splashing footsteps. And it only happens when I move. So the way that these are configured is that this item right here has a new object, or a new mono behavior that's included with the engine called movement sound area, and the movement hit profile is footstep hits water, which is now included with the engine. And what it does is, so long as you're inside of the collider for this area, then your footstep sound will be overridden by the footstep water sound. And so these are basically super easy to set up and just make different footstep areas. We've got some better prefabs for the marsh reed in here. It looks a little bit more like a green plant. And I'm just going to turn that audio down a little bit because it's super loud. And we'll just continue on and collect all of our marsh reed here. So we'll pick all that up. And you can see that basically we've got these new colliders, and this one here is actually just here for a visual. I mean, you actually could climb over this if you wanted, but if you look, there are some invisible walls on the level. And oops, let's just look for collision here. And there's the invisible walls, basically. And so this is to prevent your character from sort of falling off the level. And you can actually find that by just looking for zone colliders. And the zone colliders prefab is included in the prefabs folder in the engine now. So when you're making your level, you can just pull this in, and it's going to put basically 4 walls around your level that will prevent your character from falling off your map or from sort of going beyond where you want him to go. we're having pretty bad luck with our drops today. Alright, good. So we got all the swamp reed that we need, and we're gonna get this damaged bow quest off the goblin here. And you can see that as soon as we exited this, then the footstep sound was basically returned to normal. Let me turn up the volume a little bit again. And now we can learn inscription, and he's going to give us a quest to basically go over and make some scrolls. So we'll head over to the table here, and we will click on craft all for the parchment paper. And you can see that we've got some new prefabs here as well with this version. We've got a pen we're holding and a new scroll. And what we can do is take advantage of our crafting queue here basically, and just go to Scroll of Agility, click that to 2 and click Craft, and then go to Intellect, click 2, click Craft, and then go to Stamina, click 2, Craft, and Strength, 2, Craft. And he's just going to go through and craft all these things. This is using the animation hits to make those audio as well, and it's actually the same sound I think as either the bow or the punch, because the sound effects included with the engine are pretty basic, but you know, it definitely adds a little more to the game when they're included right out of the box for sure. So let's see, he'll continue crafting here. I have a scroll of agility I'm going to put on my bars. And there's my scroll of intellect I'll put on my bars. And the scroll of stamina we'll put on the bars. And finally we'll get our scrolls of strength popping up here in a second. Alright, great. And now I got all my scrolls, and I can go turn this part of the quest in. And it's time to go kill some goblins. So we're going to go join the battle over here, because right now the goblins are winning against the mice and they need some help for sure. So we'll just use our life tether because it's like one of those abilities that's pretty overpowered right now. And we've got to collect some goblin ears here and kill about 5 more rangers, it looks like. Another thing that I didn't really mention too much so far is when you see all the text here, this text is actually using TextMesh Pro now, because TextMesh Pro is much more performant than the Unity built-in text. In here, actually our frame rates are not particularly great, but it's reduced a lot of the UI lag in the engine. Because with all the text sort of scrolling up on screen here, there used to be a ton of UI lag basically. Another feature included in 0.8 alpha is we're using object pooling. So for the combat text, we're not actually instantiating combat text every time that one of those things is spawned. We're basically reusing the objects in order to try to reduce basically any lag spikes in the engine as well. So I think I headed over to the wrong guy here. I gotta head over and turn this in at Squeak-a-Lot. We don't have any sort of compass on the map yet, but that would definitely be something that I'd like to do in future versions when when we make some mini-map improvements. Talking about the mini-map, there's actually a few improvements with it in this version anyway. Because the mini-map is a separate camera, if you want a little bit better performance out of your game, you can actually look at the mini-map and you can set mini-map camera here, and you can actually limit its frame rate. So the mini-map actually has to render just like your main camera has to render, and it's rendering in real time right now, which isn't performance. So if you're noticing low frame rates, go ahead and just find your mini-map camera and just click limit frame rate. And if I check this box here and set the frame rate to like 5, it'll only update, for example, like 5 times per second. In a future version, we're going to add the ability for the mini-map to actually use like pre-rendered images, and then it won't have to render like a camera. So we have a quest here to go steal all of the ham from our goblins over there. And now we have enough reputation, we can collect some cheese, and we'll get a vial of water here so that we can make some potions. He'll train us in alchemy as well, and then why don't we just go sell like pretty much all of that junk in our bags, which we don't need anymore, because we're starting to get full bags here. So one of the great things about the new random item level system, oh, you know what, look at that. I have a miner's cloth hood and I didn't put it on. That's great. This is why cleaning out your bags is always fantastic, because you find stuff in them that you didn't even really know that you had here. So just keep looking through that, make sure that nothing else here is needed. I can actually learn that recipe. And we'll rearrange that scroll, put it down there, get rid of pretty much everything else here because we don't need really any of this stuff. We do need that scroll though. And we need that scroll and that scroll. And we'll just sell the rest of the random drop items that we got here. Alright, great. So now we've cleaned out our bags, and we'll go make an alchemy potion, and you can actually see the new holdable system here as well. So I'll make one of these small health potions here, and basically when I click craft, you can hear the water sound and you can see the new holdable, and that water bubble sound is actually included in the engine as well. So you can have sort of bubble sounds in your game too. Continuing on with the quest over here, we're going to head over to this far end of Birch Grove here, where we will find Piggly Wiggly and the quest to go steal the pig's food supply, or I mean the goblin's food supply, so that the goblins basically go home, because, you know, it takes a lot of food to feed an army, right? And Piggly Wiggly is now in a cage, which is an improvement over last version, so we're just trying to make the example prefabs a little better here. I want to make sure that I do not get too close to all those goblins, because I have 8 goblin rangers and a necromancer, and all those goblin rangers will spawn bunnies. So we'll talk to Piggly Wiggly here, and you can see he's pink because he's a pig, or he's at least supposed to be. And he makes us a deal that he'll fix this bow that we found and teach us how to be a ranger if we help free him by getting the cage key from the necromancer over there. So we'll steal all the bunny food beside him, and then that way not only will the goblins have no food, but their bunnies will have no food, and then we'll actually have a chance of defeating that little army over there. So we'll head back to the base now and just go turn in all this stuff. And you can see that all of these values are being updated real time. For the secondary stat system, we actually can control accuracy and casting speed now, and I don't know that we were actually able to do that in the last version. So we'll complete the quest here and accept the final countdown, and then we will craft some cooked ham. So we've got some sort of bubble sounds while we're crafting that now. And that cooked ham will allow us to get a stat buff, which will help us out in the final battle, which we're about to engage in. So we need to go back over to Squeak-a-Lot here and get our quest to go engage in this battle here. And now there are a whole pile of mice over here. You can see that in the back we don't just have a goblin army, we've got a little bit of a mouse army as well, and these guys are going to help us to defeat our goblin necromancer. And one of the reasons why I've included so much sample content with this, if you haven't seen it, basically the content that we're including or actually playing through right here is from the Lost Soul game that is also available from the AnyRPG.org downloads page. You can see down here, Free Playable Games of Lost Soul. And I'll be releasing Chapter 2 soon. This is actually a preview of Chapter 2 as it includes all the content from it. And you can also see on the AnyRPG playlists here, if you look at the View Full playlist under AnyRPG Gameplay, this episode right here is the Lost Soul playthrough. And a Lost Soul is basically designed to take advantage of pretty much every feature that the engine has. And so that's why basically what I've done is included the entire content of the Lost Soul game, but just with the prefabs replaced with content that I'm actually allowed to redistribute and isn't owned by other people, so that if you need to look at, how does a certain feature of the engine work, then you've pretty much got a sample game included that takes advantage of every feature of the engine, including these shrinking hams that you can eat as well. And so it's there's not a lot of guesswork basically involved if you want to do really advanced things with the engine. So I'm just going to tag the goblin necromancer over here and pull him over towards these mice. And I'm going to blind him and hit him with a dot, and then do a life drain on him and just sort of let the mice beat him up here. And there we go, we got him, and we got a broken fishing rod that we found. So let's just help the mice clean up the rest of the goblins here. There we go. And now we can go free Piggly Wiggly. And we're pretty much almost done the original Chapter 1 content. Now, he can change us to the Ranger class, but we're not going to actually do that because we don't have any leather gear, and all our gear is for this class over here, the Channeler, which we are right now. You can see that the cute fluffy bunnies have returned to the grove, so we save the day, all the goblins are gone, and now the grove is as it should be. We don't have a bunch of sort of angry undead bunnies wandering around. Our reputation has increased enough that the Save-A-Lot is available here for us, and we could look at the bank here and actually put things in the bank if we wanted to. So you know what, we don't need this initiates, or actually let's equip this 20 slot bag, and then let's put our uncooked hams over here in the bank because we really don't need those and we can't sell them. They don't have a sell price right now. So we're gonna basically go over here and turn in this quest, and we're gonna see some new sample content that's included with the engine. So when we talk to Fish-A-Lot over here, he is gonna take this fishing rod that we found and he's going to tell us all about Swim-A-Lot, who love to fish, and he's going to thank us by basically teaching us how to fish here. And we're going to learn the fishing skill, and we can see this new sample fish prefab that's included as well. It's not just like a big circle anymore. And we also have this splashing effect. This is actually the same splash effect from the footsteps, but it's included with the engine, so the fishing sound in the engine, or the fishing skill, actually makes a sound now. We're going to want to go over here and turn in our quest at swim a lot, or squeak a lot over here. I think in a future version what I might do is I'll probably add a separate volume control just for footsteps as well, because some of the footsteps are a little loud, or maybe I'll just adjust the default volumes on the ones that are included with the engine. We can head back to the base now, turn in the cheese, and we'll be able to basically start the Chapter 2 content. And this is actually preview content that isn't available yet. It will be coming up in A Lost Soul Chapter 2. One of the features that I do need to add to the engine in the very, very short future before I can release that game is basically support for asset bundles. I've gotten to the point where there's so much complex graphics in the Lost Soul game that the current texture file is like 6 gigabytes, and because I'm still on Unity 2019 LTS, which has a 4 gigabyte limit on texture files, a lot of the textures are pretty messed up. So asset bundles should help solve that by putting all the different chapters into different files. So we're going to teleport back to the base now. We got this reality tear, and everybody told us that we were crazy. They all couldn't see the reality tear, only we could. And so we're just going to vanish right in front of them, right? They're like, sure, why not? People vanish all the time. We'll talk to the Guardian of Souls here, and basically when we talk to him, this is sort of the start of the new content now, so we're now going into the new Chapter 2 content. We tell him that there's a hole in reality that only we could see, and he tells us that he's going to have to analyze the data from our purple tooth transmitter. Our character is rather confused, and we get told that, yeah, we've got a chip inside of one of our teeth. Our tooth is purple, and it is a purple tooth transmitter that broadcasts all the information from our body directly to him when we return. And if we were ever to wear a tinfoil hat, then it would block the signals from our purple tooth transmitter, so don't do that, because he needs to be able to analyze everything and tell us why we were the only ones who could actually see that tear in reality. We'll head over here, and we've got a new crystal available. And you can see that this crystal over here is for the Arena of Trials. And in the Arena of Trials, we are going to see the jukebox and the mob spawner, and we'll get our first mount that is available with the engine. And you can see we're including some new prefabs as well. These things are our new portals here. And although there isn't any music that I have permission to redistribute, and by the way, if you're watching this and you make music and you can give some that could be distributed with the engine for free, that would absolutely be amazing. What I can do is I can play, I think, which one of these? Drums of War, Hard Battle Torn. There we go. So this is like a tolling bell sound that's included with the engine. And we can play this and stop this using the in-game jukebox. And we're going to go over here to the automated telemonster machine, and we are going to summon up a red dragon. And he's going to try to breathe some sample-looking fire at us, but we're just going to pretty much nuke him with our super overpowered life tether ability and get this red dragon scale, which will give us a mount as soon as we turn this quest in. And then the rest of this content is going to get a lot quicker, as we can basically run through it at much faster speeds. So we'll go turn that quest in. And basically, he tells us that he's done analyzing all the data from our purple tooth transmitter, and we had absorbed earth and death energy, and that's why we were able to actually see that thing. And he tells us that there are 8 types of elemental energy in total: life, death, earth, air, fire, ice, water, and lightning. And the whole is draining all the elemental energy. And in order to figure out where it's going, we're going to need to absorb all the types of energy. And by absorb, he means, just go fight really tough stuff that could completely destroy you. So he gives us some advice that we should go find some friends, and we had an invitation to meet a high priestess and bring her some cheese, so we're going to go petition her to try to find these sources of elemental energy. And we're going to turn in this dragon scale. He had accidentally left a deadly dragon on in the automatic telemonster machine, and we'll get a piece of the dragon scale will function as a whistle, and now we can actually ride our dragon mount. Looking at this, you can see that I'm not riding a dragon mount, I'm riding an Uma character, and that's because I don't have a dragon mount I can redistribute. So same deal, if you're somebody who can make 3D models and you want to include a rigged animated mount, that would be absolutely amazing, because right now my guy's just running around on an Uma character pretty much, but he can do so at 20 meters per second, so it's a little quicker. So we'll teleport over to Birch Grove here, and then we can go to the Sun Temple, which is the beginning capital city that is now available in 0.8 alpha and coming up in a Lost Soul Chapter 2. So Sir Invincible here is going to give us a permission to go wander through the mountains and over to the Sun Temple, and you'll see now that we've actually got a portal here, and we can follow a path into the mountains, and we can go to the Sun Temple, where we get to see a pile of new content. So we'll start off with basically sort of the layout of the Sun Temple. Why don't we just hop on our mount to explore this? I'll get into these doors here a little later. But over on the right hand side, we've got an alchemy guild, which has an alchemist's workbench, an inscription table where we can make scrolls, and this guy will teach us alchemy if we don't already know it. The city is full of trees and new types of flowers, wild indigo and orange gazanias that you can use to make more powerful potions. And there's a seamstress guild over here with a tailor girl and some sewing tables. Now, I'm not just some perv who likes to look at half-naked Uma models. There's quite literally no free redistributable Uma clothing that fits the medieval theme. So if you like to make Uma armor and would like to make some for the game so our female characters here aren't quite so cold and can dress up as fancy as our male characters, I would love you forever. We can now see the new Crafter's Bazaar, and we can see some more of the Uma recolors. So these guys are wearing a yellow recolor of the Challenger armor that I made for this new tier of content. And we've got a jeweler's whetstone over here as well. And we can buy plate armor, we can buy jewelry, leather weapons, and cloth gear. And we've also got some new sample versions of the gear included that you can just stick in if you want to make like a store where you can sort of browse the goods beforehand. So carrying on, we can find over here a butcher who can teach us how to cook, and basically every oven in the city, inside every building in the city, is actually interactable so that you can cook on them, and that's what all these doors are here. These doors basically represent where there would be buildings in the actual Sun Temple that'll be in the Lost Soul game. We can see there's a bunch of trainers over here, so you can change to a fighter, a warrior, or even a hunter over here with our new NPC Danica Light Quiver, who we'll be learning about more in the future. Heading over here, you can see, I've got doors. I can't really do anything with them, I can't really go through them, so I can click on them though. And let me just turn up the volume a little bit, because this sound effect here is a little quiet. But doors now make sounds, and they open and close, and this is a new feature of the engine, so you can hear the open and close creak and that nice click. which I think is totally awesome. Now this door is something called an animated object. So if we look at the Sun Temple, I have some Sun Temple door prefabs basically. And the way that animated objects work is we have an audio profile for sheathing and unsheathing. This is actually doubled up. This object prefab profile can be used for weapons. So if you're like taking a sword out of a holster or a sheath, you can actually use a sound effect for it now. But what happens is the engine is basically just going to rotate the door or like move them between these two values. So in this case, what we're doing is just making the door rotate 90 degrees, which is how we're opening it. And then we're playing the open sound when we're doing that. And then when we close it, it just basically puts it back to these values and then plays this closing sound as well. So we'll head inside our Sun Temple and we can hear some echo sounds. So there are now echo footsteps included with the engine. And if we look here, I believe we've got a footstep area as well. So in this footstep area, let me just hit F and I can see it there. So anywhere inside of this circle, basically, it's not exactly matching the geometry of the room here, but anywhere inside this circle, we'll be playing footstep hits echo instead of a regular footstep when we wander around. So we'll come over here, we'll talk to the priestess, and we're going to hand her some of these crystals that we picked up from the mobs, and she's going to tell us that you know, we would normally be jailed for this, but if we weren't the hero of the grove, and so we ask her for help and say, you know, we would like to find as much elemental energy as possible, and she tells us that it almost destroyed the world. And she's going to need to teach us about why these things are so dangerous, so we'll need a history lesson. So to get the history lesson quest, we'll have to learn about the history of magic, the Sundance, the War of the Magi, and the Manicy. Sorry about that. Let me just turn that volume down a little bit so it's not quite so loud. There we go. Okay, so coming up here, what we're going to see is this apprentice historian is going to do a bunch of cool new things in this engine. He is going to have a speech bubble over his head, he's going to start walking, and he's going to start talking.
In the beginning, there was no magic. Man could not project his will outside his body. In a time before history, people discovered that they could channel their will to control the environment around them. This channeling came to be known as magic.
I'm just going to walk.
Were called magi. But there was a side effect. You can read about it in this book right here.
So what we've just seen here is a number of new features. First of all, he can actually just pick up a book and read it, which is kind of a cool new thing. Essentially what he's doing is he's actually casting a spell called Read Book, and that spell, instead of doing like spell prefabs like, you know, clouds and stuff, is actually just spawning a solid book. So what's happening is he's using a patrol, which is something that's always been available, but there's a new thing called a behavior that's included in the engine. So let's just try to find that. So basically, we have apprentice historian Flair. An apprentice historian Flair has a bunch of behaviors available to him, Sunsworn History 1 through 4. So let's just go see what those look like and how that's actually making him do these actions. So behaviors have behavior nodes, and each behavior node can basically send a message to the game object. So the way that this works is that you can define any behaviors you want, so long as there's some game object on your unit that can basically has a public method that matches that name, as well as a parameter, then you can send a message. So it's actually sending a message calling begin dialogue and passing in the string sunsworn history 1, at which point it's actually going to begin that dialogue, and that dialogue actually has some audio associated with it. So when we look at sunsworn history 1, there's the dialogue, and there's the text that's going to go along with it. If we look back at the behavior, you can see he's going to also begin the patrol at the exact same time. So the patrol will cause him to walk there, and the dialogue will cause him to talk while he's on the way there. At 30 seconds in, he's actually going to begin a spell or a method called begin face southeast and turn toward the bookshelf, and at 31 seconds he's going to cast that ability open and read book. So basically this is kind of like a poor man's version of the Unity timeline, that just allows you, without having to create a bunch of complicated binds and stuff, to just pretty much activate any method that's publicly available on any game object. So if you add your own game objects and you want to sort of script them or coordinate them based on this sort of simple time-based logic, you can totally do it. This dialogue also has an audio profile associated with it called Sunsworn History 1. So if we look at the Sunsworn History 1 audio, it's got a list of clips, and what happens is for each dialogue node, it'll just go through the list and trigger each of the clips. So when the first dialogue plays, it'll play clip 1. The second dialogue plays, it'll automatically play clip 2. So these basically just get played automatically, and you don't have to worry about synchronizing the time codes on them. The next thing that we can see here is that Apprentice Historian Flare, when we go to this cutscene and come back, will basically be standing in the same spot. And that's due to another new feature of the engine, and that is persistent objects. So if we look at our example Apprentice Historian Flare unit, we can see that he's got a new mono behavior on him called persistent object, and another one called UUID. And what happens is this assigns a number that's virtually guaranteed to be unique, something like 3 universes would have to exist before it's not, basically. And it will actually save his position, so that not only can your character have his position saved, but an NPC will have his position saved, because when we finish watching this cutscene, we don't want him to basically reappear over there, because we're actually going to leave the zone in order to do this. So we're going to click on this, and we're going to learn about the history of magic.
Man worked and toiled all day. Work, work, work. Magic made life easier. But it also caused the life force of the caster to leak out into the environment. What's this? What is happening? Where it could grant sentience to anything it touched.
So this entire cutscene basically was controlled through those behaviors. So essentially that caveman had a scripted behavior just like this guy that would cause him to walk to a certain spot and then perform a spell that would basically spawn that corn in his hand, and then say a dialogue and then cast another spell. So the voiceovers for the cutscene are actually just using 2 features combined together that we have already seen. So if we look at the history of magic cutscene, we can see that it has a dialogue, history of magic. So if we look at the history of dialogue magic, we can see it's associated with the history of magic audio profile. So these dialogue pieces right here are what appear on the subtitles, and then in the history of magic audio profile, that's where we're basically getting all the sounds from that played in that cutscene there. So this is a really neat way to do things without Unity timelines. You can see Apprentice Historian Flare has popped back here. Everybody else is at their default spot once we reloaded into this zone. So we will continue the lesson.
Around the time that people discovered magic, there was a tribe of ancient sun worshippers called the Sun Dancers. Two twins, Jaden and Jaren Sundancer, discovered that their traditional dancers had the power to channel the sun. Unlike magic, which leached the life force of the user, the sun did not corrupt anything when channeled. The twins practiced their dancing until their ability to control the sun made them more powerful than even the strongest mages.
And we will see another use for the fact that dialogues can have audio associated with them right here. Basically, we can associate audio with any dialogue, and since dialogues control not only the chat bubbles and the subtitles, but also these dialogue windows, we can get text when we click on this guy to accept the next quest, or we can get audio.
Have you ever seen a sun dance? Your timing could not be better. Instructor Foxy is out in the courtyard right now. Her students are about to begin practicing the dance. Yes, definitely. Come back to me once you have seen it.
So the audio options in the game are definitely a lot more expanded and a lot more immersive now. Right here, what we're going to see is a bunch of Sun Temple Sun Dancers, and they actually have behaviors as well. And the behavior is basically just to cast an ability that uses a dance as an animation. But what's going to happen is essentially they have a prerequisite that a dialogue has to be completed. So when I talk to Instructor Foxy right here, she is going to basically complete the dialogue as part of a behavior. And as part of that behavior, she's also going to cast a conduct spell. And in the game, there's actually music playing in the background because that spell actually has some music along with it. But in this example, we don't have the rights to distribute that music. But this is just another way to make a sort of fun animated scene using the new behavior system.
Although mana could grant sentience to anything it touched, it did not grant intelligence or wisdom. Fire elementals would burn everything around them. Likewise, the dead would come back to life with an eternal grudge against everyone. Wars tore the world apart and threatened to destroy it, until the Sundancer twins created the Sunsworn, with the goal of banning magic use and protecting the world from harm. They amassed an army of followers and tried to convince everyone to abandon their harmful ways. Not everyone agreed, and there were many battles.
In the next cutscene, this one is also basically entirely controlled by behavior interactables. So the NPCs will basically have their aggro turned on, and this cutscene will play out differently every single time that you watch it, just because of the random nature of the attacks the NPCs will choose.
The Magi were destroying the world with their thoughts. The more magic was used, the more monsters. The undead were winning the battle against the living. The Sunsworn offered the barbarians the chance to repent. The barbarians refused, and the Sunsworn were forced to wage war on them to protect the world.
And what just happened there is the behavior profile actually sent a message that caused these guys to enable their aggro. So that's why they were able to wander on the screen without basically attacking these guys. So with the behavior, you can send any message, including a message to enable the aggro on the unit's aggro colliders. And it allows you to make, entirely dynamic scenes like this just by telling the character, wander here, turn on your aggro, and then just let the rest of the AI system and the combat system do its job.
When the last battle had been won, There was a problem to deal with. Something had to be done about all the mana still in the environment. The power of the sun could contain it, but at night, the Sunsworn were powerless. They had to find a solution that allowed them to contain the mana safely at all times. It was decided that some of the technology created by magic use would be repurposed to create a seal that would work at all times.
This next cutscene that we're going to watch takes heavy advantage of the Unity timeline system. So the Unity timeline has been integrated in such a way that we can control the environment, we can change the skybox, we can enable or disable objects, and we can even perform complicated camera animations. So let's see what that looks like.
A remote location was chosen in the desert where the sun always shone. A large well called the Mana Seal was built to contain the collected mana. It used the power of the sun to form an impenetrable barrier. Special automations called Lunamex would collect the light rays during the day. When the sun set, the Lunamex would release
And
the
as you can
stored
see, the energy,
to
or I
maintain
mean the light,
shield.
was basically just disabled by the Unity timeline here. Another new feature that was used in that cutscene was the lasers at the beginning, and each laser could be set to only hit a maximum of 2 targets, so they would always only hit the targets closest to them, which would prevent them from hitting every one of those Lunamex randomly. So now that we've completed this quest, she tells us that we need to go check on the Mana Seal, because if those crystals that we got came from the Mana Seal, then it means that something has gone wrong with the Mana Seal. So we get sent on a quest to go find the secretive Light Guard Knights, who were basically guarding the secret location of the Mana Seal, because if anything were to ever happen to the Mana Seal, all that mana would leak out into the environment and the wars could start all over again. So we will hop on our dragon and we will go check out the rest of the city here. We've got a blacksmith and an anvil. We've got a apprentice leather worker and a leather working table here over at the Leather Workers Guild. And finally we have a woodworkers guild and a woodworking bench over here. And then the portal to Light Fury Outpost. In Light Fury Outpost we arrive and we find that the commander is dead, basically. You can pretend that this is a dead commander. I don't have any great prefabs for him yet. And for some really interesting reason, let me just check the console here. I don't see any errors here, but it looks like we did not register traveling to Light Fury Outpost, so let's try that again. Whoops, I went to the wrong zone. Okay, let's try that one more time. There may potentially be a bug here. I'm just going to exit the game. And jump back into it. So it looks like I do have a minor bug that I'm gonna need to fix. I think we're actually just gonna do a part 2 of the release live stream once that bug is fixed, and we will be able to continue on with the quest. So I hope you enjoyed that so far. If you did, then don't forget to thumbs up the video, subscribe to the AnyRPG YouTube channel, or just leave a note in the comments. And thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.